Welcome to That's Good Craic.
With me, Dan, Colin.
How is? What's the crack?
And Mick.
Yo, yo, yo.
Listen to our podcast every Wednesday.
Hello, lads and lassies. You're very welcome to the 4th episode of That's Good Craic. I'm Mick, and I'm your host for this evening. And I'd like to thank everyone on behalf of the lads and myself for getting in contact with us over the week and listening. And, something that came up with a lot of people was they were interested in us talking about relationships once you get sober. And we thought, it might be an interesting one to go with this evening. And kick off first, just asking lads, how are you keeping?
What's the crack, boys?
Oh, they're gone.
How are you doing? The host with the most.
I tell you one thing, yous are looking well.
You'll have to take our words for it.
Yeah, we're built for the radio.
You have a face for radio.
Exactly.
You have a face for the radio, boys, I'm telling you now.
My mother said of a face that needs regular panel beat.
Oh, very good. Nice to see you and hear you again, boys. All is good.
Week.
Had a decent week. I don't know if you'd class it as good. It was grand, as we say here in Ireland. She was decent. As you know, I had a good time at the weekend. Little dance, little sing song.
Happy
The
days.
crack August Cure. How about you, Danny boy?
Busy weekend, man. Suppose different. This is the interesting thing when you think about the distance that's between a lot of us, in the sense that physical distance, as in, and the weather differences, the difference in lifestyle. Yeah, I had a good weekend, and spent a good bit of it outside on Sunday, which was nice, and just chilled, man. Do you know what I mean? Nothing wild, no dancing, unfortunately, but sure, it wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad at all.
Listen, I don't want to hear about the sun shining, okay?
I'll say nothing.
we had 9 degrees with scattered showers.
I was sunbathing, I will tell you that though.
What about you, Mick?
Fairness, we did crack the shades out on Sunday.
The shades were out. Yeah, it was actually quite nice on Sunday, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, decent. So you're saying you think we should get into the old relationships chestnut?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think everyone should grab the popcorn and you know what I mean.
Get the popcorn.
Pull that phone close to your ear to hear the gory details. No, it could be obviously romantic relationships, dating and all that type of stuff. It does change, you know what I mean, when you stop drinking and stuff, and but normal other relationships do as well, And so, how did you find that, Colin, when you came into recovery first?
Sorry, I just love the way you throw me in there into the deep end, into the shark tank. Go on, Colin, you take over.
Don't worry, Danny will be getting in the next soon.
No, but it was tricky waters to navigate, wasn't it? Very tricky. Well, I would have been in a long-term relationship when I decided to stop drinking and taking drugs and that, so I didn't experience the whole new side of it for a couple of years, I would say. But it was definitely a completely different dynamic in so many ways, I suppose, socially everything changed, I suppose. It was different.
Well, for me, I think one of the things, like Colin, I was in a relationship from the get-go when I came into recovery, and I think we had about 3 months together when the relationship started, Oh, sorry, not when the relationship started, but when the relationship ended with alcohol and drugs, yeah. And of course, I made my own decision to go another way, and she wasn't making the same decision, And that was quite hard, I think, at the start of the relationship, because I had made a conscious decision to stop being part of the drug and drink culture, and she this is where I met her, was in the drug and drink culture. And to you know, all of a sudden I was starting a journey in another direction and she was staying in that direction. And in the early days of that change for me, it caused a lot of friction in the relationship. You know what I mean? It was, you know, she would still go out on a Saturday night and I would stay at home. And I had to deal with a lot of the feeling of like being kind of isolated and the feel of kind of like just living in two different worlds. And even now when I talk about it, I think to myself, how did that relationship actually even function? Like, and how did it last 6.5 years? You know what I mean? And I learned a lot of lessons in that relationship, you know what I mean? And, you know, part of me thinks back and goes, oh, I wish, you know, I wasn't in a relationship at the start of my recovery, or my stopping of drinking and drugging. And at the end of the day, now I look at it and say, that's what happened. That's the way it was meant to be. And I learned a lot about things like, you know, as we said when we talked about going to a nightclub, for example, for the first time, it felt like I was 13 years old. And that's the way I felt in the relationship at the start. You know what I mean? All this stuff that I didn't know I had started coming up, jealousy, envy, all these different things that were quite powerful in that relationship and hindered the relationship from being successful, came up. And I had to look at myself. It made me look at myself a lot more, and I learned a lot from that relationship. And it was not a good relationship in general, as in it you know, I'm glad it happened, but if you were to put me in the same situation now, it wouldn't have lasted probably that long, you know. And I apologize to the person that I was in the relationship that I'm just talking about. So obviously there's a disclaimer to this, you know, it's not, you know, we're talking about people that aren't on the show here, and you know, it's just one of those situations. It wasn't good for the both of us, but we kept trying to put it together as much as we could, and it just wasn't. We shouldn't have forced it so much, and it's one of the lessons I learned. And then obviously when it ended, being on my own, and this is kind of an important thing as well, I think, for a lot of people that stop drinking and drugging, is when the relationship ended, I was on my own. And of course, I would like to meet someone, and I didn't know how to. Do you know what I mean? I was certainly like, well, you know, I was DJing and stuff like that, but I didn't have, because I was in this relationship for a large part of my early recovery, or early stopping drinking and drugging, that I was like, well, how do I chat? How do I talk to a girl? How do I make the first move? All those things that, you know, a lot of people maybe have learned, but I didn't know. And here I was, like, back at, you know, wondering, well, how do I meet? How do I go up and say, you know, oh Jesus, how are you doing? I think you're lovely. Would you hold me hand? Do you know what I mean? How do I approach a girl? And I was literally at the beginning, so that was probably my first relationship first relationship in recovery, without drinking and drugging, and I had to learn a lot from that. So, and then obviously I became single again, and I think back then, if I'm trying to remember, there wasn't Tinder and there wasn't any of that stuff. You know what I mean? It was just old-fashioned. What's the crack? You know, do you fancy going for a coffee? Or, you know, even then, like, asking for someone to go for a coffee with you was probably a bit weird, because the way of meeting someone back then was like, you go for a drink, you know what I mean? And you'd be out in the club and you'd be shouting at the other person and you'd end up with them, or, you know. So yeah, that was kind of my early experiences of dating. Anyways, lads, what's kind of, any of you identifying with that, or, you know?
Yeah, just going to jump back in there, because I kind of my head got a bit blocked when Mick threw me into the deep end there at the very start. But when I actually think back, a lot of this stuff you said was kind of my own experience in it too, you know, like, especially before I decided to give up drinking drugs. That whole, you know, we were very young. I was in a long-term relationship. We were very young, and There was a lot of cocaine and alcohol. Not a lot, but like at times, you know what I mean? And it was very, what would you say, not healthy at times because of that. And now, when I did give everything up like that, you know, it did get healthier, but I still had to deal with the same things like you were saying. She gone out on a Saturday night while I sat at home, you know what I mean? Or else trying to do the normal thing and trying to go out. And, you know, being sober and stuff and drinking 14 cans of Red Bull in 20 minutes, like pure awkwardness and uncomfortableness, like at the time. And it was very tough. It was very tough because there's kind of an inner battle, isn't there? There's an inner battle in order to, like you were saying, they're constantly trying to make it right, constantly trying to figure this out. And then all the feelings and everything, they're all new. You know, they're all new, like all these different experiences going into them, whether it's relationships or going out or whatever, it's all new experiences. I was 23 or 24, I think, when I stopped using alcohol and drugs. And when I think back, everything was new, and including those relationships, like you said. Also, when it comes into it, then like going out on the Saturday night and all these different feelings of jealousy and fucking emotions of, like, I don't know, would it be loneliness? I don't know, when you're sitting at home there on your own and that kind of stuff. But it didn't work because of our social habits. That's what happened. There was a breakdown in it over that kind of thing. So eventually it just kind of, you know, you can say you can try and make things work for a long time, but it just didn't. It just, one person was into one thing and the other wasn't into the other thing whatsoever. So it just kind of drifted apart. That's how I like to, actually, that's how I view it, was that it just kind of drifted apart. But yeah, and that thing that you talked about, I'm lucky that there's a few years in the difference with us when it comes to sobriety, I suppose. And I did have access to plentyoffish.com, POF.com. It was a new experience. There was a lot of shite on it, like a lot of bullshit, you know what I mean? And you kind of start to learn what internet then was all about, where you're turning up to go on a date and someone looks completely different than they did in their profile picture, like, you know what I mean? Which was absolutely heartbreaking. After 3 or 4 weeks of chatting and having a great time and going, oh my god, this person's amazing, you know what I mean? Chats and all that. Yeah, so I came up with a policy of, right, so I take a picture before we meet and I hold up today's newspaper and she does the same thing. So then we can
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. I love it.
Because she could be disappointed when she sees me too, no? She could be, you know. So it was that kind of situation. I'm only joking, I didn't do that. But that was something I really genuinely considered. But you know, yeah, it's different. What about you, Mick?
Yeah, for me, I suppose, you know, all of my long-term relationships, short-term relationships, while I was drinking and, you know what I mean, carrying on, revolved around drink, because I was involved in the relationship, you know. When I stopped drinking, and I remember going on my first date, you know, I remember not even be able to ask, like, it just wasn't the kind of thing I did, like, you mean, I would never have said I've asked someone on a date while I was drinking, you know what I mean? You just kind of went out, things happened, you know, like, in a way, but definitely wasn't going, like, you know what I mean, up trying to, you know, with one-liners or anything like that in a pub or in a club, you know what I mean? And so, you know, as a girl, you know what I mean, and we were like, you know what I mean, I was going to an open mic, she was there, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'd like to ask her out, and I genuinely didn't even know how to ask her out, like you were saying, Danny, like, you know what I mean, what do you do? Do you say, do you want to go out, or do you want to go to wherever, you know what I mean? But I asked a mate, and he just asked me, he said to me, whatever you want to do, just ask her, do you want to do that? That's what I did. We did, you know, went out, and you know, my experience, like, you know, of that was like, yeah, fucking, you know, like, a lot of feelings, a lot of, like, you mean, uncomfortable stuff, like, you mean, a lot of just kind of uncomfortable silences and stuff like that. Not like it wasn't terrible, but there was stuff like that I never would have really experienced before. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have that buffer of the alcohol in me or whatever. And but I suppose it was a lesson learned for me. You know what I mean? I went a bit too much into me past. When I came in to the date. You know what I mean? We were sitting down, we were chatting. You know what I mean? And I just kind of was. Like I had been living a kind of an extreme enough life, you know what I mean? It was like, for the last few years before I gave up, and I suppose I divulged a bit too much on that first date. So it was the first and last date, and
I used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Like, you know what I mean? Sure, of course, this is cool. They're like horrified, you know what I mean? Not really like normal people don't live like this, you know what I mean? And but we're like, you mean, we were cool, you know what I mean? It just wasn't gonna work like that. But yeah, definitely dating for me at the start was uncomfortable. There's no saying about I found it uncomfortable, you know what I mean? I wasn't really comfortable in my skin yet, and there's nothing more to show you that in my experience than going on a date.
I tell you a good one. I remember. See, the other side of it is when you stop drinking and drugs, I did. I had very low self-esteem, very low self-belief and self-confidence, I would say. So I remember going on a date with a girl, and she was very beautiful, and I couldn't believe this girl would go on a date with me. That's how I felt like. Yeah. But I remember going to a Chinese restaurant. I remember going to a Chinese restaurant, ordering dinner. She ordered a glass of wine, and I ordered a pint of milk. and she burst out laughing. A fucking pint of milk with a Chinese. It was just so funny.
The perfect combination.
On a Saturday night in a lovely restaurant, you know what I mean? I'll have a pint of milk there. I'm delighted with it, you know what I mean? I didn't really understand what she was laughing at. But it was, the one thing about me though, I was always just myself, but it's a valuable lesson that you learn in the dating game when you give up stuff, and if you have low self-esteem, which I think most people do, or you're trying to figure life out without all those crutches, I suppose. And I just remember, if I'm like in that situation with that girl, like she was like, I looked at her up higher than me, and I was down low, and all the time I was working trying to get up to that to the same level in my own head, and then when I get up there in my head, I was like, what the fuck was this all about? You know what I mean? You kind of realize then that people are just people, no matter what situation they are, what they look like, and I learned not to look at myself as less than anyone. Again, it was a very valuable lesson. Pedestal, isn't that what they call it? Putting someone up on a pedestal. Yeah, so that was a huge learning curve for me, and I'd say that was after about 3 years, maybe. I don't know. Could have been less. I can't very bad at times. But yeah, that was a turning point for me.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about relationships, I think, for myself anyways, I speak for myself, and is the fear of rejection. You know what I mean?
That's horrendous stuff.
You know what I mean? This fear of like, I'm not good enough, or if this person doesn't like me, then it's there's some sort of non-validation in it, or you feel like you're not good enough, and that was a huge challenge for me when the first relationship ended. When I'd stopped drinking and drugging, it was actually my first serious relationship in my entire life. Do you know what I mean? It was when it ended, it was like I went to a very dark place. You know what I mean? I went to a dark place. I felt very low about myself. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel like, I generally didn't think any other woman, would love me or like me or ever want to fucking hang out with me. You know what I mean? And And it took a little work, you know what I mean, to get out of that rut, you know what I mean, to work on myself and say, you know what, I am good enough, and, you know, and to understand that, you know, not everyone is going to like me, not every, you know what I mean, and it's a game of numbers, but you know what I mean, that basically, you know, the dating thing is that you will get rejected. The reality is, well, maybe you might not, but you can get rejected, and I've got rejected many, many times, and to not take it personally, you know, and that is a big thing. That was a big thing for me to learn. And then also the fear when you get into a relationship of getting very connected and then getting hurt at a later stage, you know what I mean? And that's a big, and then taking those risks during the relationship of letting go and showing more of yourself and getting deeper into the relationship and bringing it further into your life and making it, you know, a huge thing in your life, and with the fear of that ending, you know what I mean, is another thing to struggle with it, you know, or getting hurt, you know what I mean, by the other person. And this was a huge lesson for me in my life, was I got hurt, you know what I mean? I got hurt, and I've hurt other people, you know, in relationships, you know, and I can think of a specific time, you know, that I was cheated on, you know what I mean? I was cheated on, and to get that, to find out that you've been cheated on, it's like the world falls around you, you know what I mean? And you just feel like it's a huge feeling of rejection, you know. Why would this person that you loved cheat on you? And it knocks you for six, and to kind of find a way of getting out of that, and talking to people and sharing that with other people can really make the difference. And this is the thing for me with relationships, is that it's a risk. It's a risk that can pay off. You know, that it's a risk when you go and talk to a girl for the first time. It's a risk when you make the decision to start seeing the girl more often. It's a risk when you go, but the good side of it can be amazing, you know what I mean? And sometimes you get hurt in that, you know, and to not let it, it's going to affect you, but not let it destroy everything around you, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I've had amazing times in relationships, and I've also had very hard times in relationships, but throughout them all, I've learned more about myself. That's for sure. That's 100% for sure. Like,
but the whole thing about it is to know that everything passes, isn't it? You know, like that's the key. I think when things break down or they don't work out or whatever, it's just to know that everything does. I know it's a cliche, you know, but it does actually. Everything gets better. You know, I was in a relationship before and it broke down, and I was proper lovesick for a year. You know what I mean? Not intensely, for a couple of months, pretty intense, like, you know, but I wasn't well, man. I didn't know that shit could happen to people, like, you know, but it made me more aware of myself and that kind of thing. I just wanted to say one thing about this whole going up to women in clubs and stuff. I know this is coming across as all one-sided because we're all three men and stuff like that, so we can only share our own experiences in it. I remember me and a mate of mine, we'd go out to the club and for the crack, not trying to hit on women, but just seeing if we could actually go up to a girl and chat her up, like, and I never could, because I always played the situation out as a sober guy, right? I play the situation out in my head, and I go, I walk up to a girl in the club, she's going to know exactly why I'm going over there, right? Because I've had it in times before where I go over to say hello to someone I know or whatever, and her friend just grabs you and drags her away and goes, she has a boyfriend, you know what I mean? I'm like, fuck off, you know? That kind of thing, you know what I mean? So it kind of turned me off it, but I never thought it was the most healthiest way of doing it. It was more like just trying it for the crack. It's not a very constructive way of actually meeting someone, I think, you know. And then you talk about Tinder, like, I don't know what it's like for women meeting guys on Tinder, but I know scrolling through it, you know what I mean, and you have like 2 lines to tell someone about yourself, and I've seen it so many times where people would call themselves a whiskey girl. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? I just don't know what that means. If you have 2 lines to tell someone about yourself, you know, and I it turns me. It just always kind of fucking deterred me a bit because it's a lot of hassle. Why? Like, as a sober guy, I just always found it like if someone likes to party or stuff like that, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
I had no business being in a relationship with someone that likes to party or that. That's a simple.
The stuff that we've been kind of talking about, those feelings, it's the transition. Like, you know, I'm just thinking here, because kind of jumping on a bit, because we've gone like from, like Danny saying, like in that relationship, feeling like a 13-year-old when he got sober. Like we're all saying like that fear of rejection, that uncomfortableness when you're like meeting someone new for the first time, whether we're going on a date and doing whatever, and
having a pint of milk.
Yeah, having a pint of milk, but it's you know, and getting to a point then where you're actually you get more comfortable in it. Like, you know what I mean? And for me, it's like, because even just going back to what I was talking about when I used to go out, you know, socialise and party and everything like that, you know, when you start to use some any substance to kind of like to help you socially, to help you in your life, like, you know what I mean, to give you confidence, to, you know, relieve you of that awkwardness, the fear, whatever it is, you know, that's, and when you rely heavily on that, whether you know it or not, like, you know what I mean, for me, like, it was a big chore when I came in, when I started trying to when I started going on dates and stuff like that, where I had relied so heavily on it. It was such a big part of my interactions with girls, that you know, it was a massive hole that was there. And I think, like, you know, it's easier when there's no denying it. For me anyway, it was easier when I was drinking, because, you know, it was easier to pretend that I was more confident than that was, or to fill in those gaps, you know. And when it was gone, it wasn't. And it's like leading back into what we talked about in the other podcasts, you know, finding your identity, and you know, that all these things come with actually kind of getting okay with yourself. The more you become confident, the more you do all these things, you see, I suppose what I'm getting to is you just have to be more like authentic. You know, you can't, like, for me, you can only bullshit so much, you know, and you won't bullshit for a whole relationship. You know what I mean? If you're going to get in, you know what I mean? It's going to be like, the more I just kind of worked on myself and I found out who I was, you know, gained a bit of self-respect, you know, was living a good life, you know, and taking care of what needed to be taken care of, feeling good about myself. And when I ended up, like, say, going on first date with my partner now, we've been together 8 years. When I came to go on that date, you know, I'd been like, you know, sober and that for, like, you know, 4 years at that stage. And, you know, I'd been a single parent, and, you know, I'd been living a good life, you know what I mean? And I've been doing things with myself, and, you know, I was playing music, I was feeling a lot more confident in myself. So even though, yeah, it was, like, you know what I mean, it might be, you know, like a little uncomfortable, it definitely wasn't where I was at that time in the early days, having that first date. So I just think, you know, it's, you know, actually becoming the person I want to be, you know, becomes more of a, what would you say? It's more, you don't get to bullshit as much, you know what I mean? You actually have to become a legitimate person, the person that you want to be. Like, you know, I don't know if that's coming across right, but yeah, I just found that doing that made all these things easier. And whatever it is, whether it was like we talked about last week, going to the work, you know what I mean, just carrying myself socially, doing whatever, like, the more I actually sorted myself out, felt okay in myself, the more that became, like, you know, easier.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It is. It's just like everything, isn't it? Experience breeds confidence, isn't it? And getting out there and trying stuff. I've always tried to not wrap myself in cotton wool when it came to any of these type of things, you know, especially dating and stuff. Although after I got hurt a lot, I did at that one time. I was a lot more cautious.
Yeah.
In my approach to it, just for my own mental health, I suppose.
I think as well, one of the things for me that, you know, when you talk about the cotton wool thing and that, and it's a bit like a roller. Well, not, I don't want to use a cliche. It's like a roller coaster. You know what I mean? But it's like you can take a few steps forward in the whole relationship thing and going on dates and thing, and then something hits you, like you talked about, Colin, where the relationship ends or you get hurt, and you go back a bit and you're like, you know what I mean, you're defending yourself like you would in a ring, you know what I mean. It takes time. Like I got really hurt, like really badly hurt in a relationship, and something, you know, it was just, I was cheated on very badly. It hurt me very badly, and I found it very hard to trust again. You know what I mean? To trust, because I was lied. Like I was in a relationship with a compulsive liar that lied about everything. Do you know what I mean? And that, you know, and lived another life while going out with me. And when that ended, I was like, Jesus, I found it very hard to trust a woman after that. You know what I mean? I found it very hard to trust what was coming out of people's mouths, and it just took time for that healing process to happen, and for me to kind of open up a bit again, you know, and open up the guard a bit and let people in. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I think that relationships and different situations in your life, in relationships, not just in sexual relationships and but also in relationships with people, where you can end up getting burnt, you know, by someone who you know you trust, and they do something, you know, that really hurts you. It can make you, you know, back off and go into a bit of a kind of protective mode, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And it takes time and healing to come back out. I was just thinking as well, when we were talking as well, I was thinking about lads, did you ever get stood up? Did you ever? I remember going on a date once, and I was just, and like trying to pretend that you weren't waiting for someone. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. I don't think that's ever happened to me.
Sitting there, and you're like, sitting there, and they're just like, I don't know whether that person came in and had a look and walked back out. I don't know, but I remember sitting there and just kind of thinking, you know, how do I get out of this place? But you have to pay the bill, man, and go. Like, you know, if you're sitting there and you've set a table for two when you come in, it's just embarrassing, you know.
walking into the restaurant like a gangster. You know, I mean, dinner for one, no, for two. You know.
I'm here with two, man.
Danny, just tell me, man, did you bring flowers?
I was wearing the purple flower on me checkered shirt.
You were not
sitting there with a bunch of flowers in his hand.
Oh, no, let's clear something up first of all. Were you wearing a purple flower on your shirt?
So she could identify me. That was before.
Oh my God.
I'm only joking, man.
Danny, you're not. You deserve to be stood up.
Yeah, in the old days, you know that whole thing, you know.
The old days, Danny. What age are you, for fuck's sake? You're in the old days.
You know,
we went to a date on horse and cart. You know what I mean? It's like the old days.
Yeah, it was.
But do you know, when I was a lad, you know what I mean, where you had to walk 6 million miles to work, but
I had to have a chaperone. There was some guy went with them, isn't it?
Yeah.
When Jesus was a boy, huh?
But like the idea of like my first experience with dating was online dating was at, do you ever remember that anotherfriend.com or something like, I think it was.
Jesus Christ, no. That was like one of those ones that was on TV, wasn't it? For elite.
You had to send letters.
I hear it. We were using pages. Hey, look, I'm from Roscommon, man. We only got electric there recently. But the thing is, yeah, so yeah, that standing up thing isn't great, like, but yeah, and that thing you were on about, Colin, as well. You know, when you go on a date and you meet them and they're nothing like the picture that they sent you, like, and you're literally, and you're trying to be an absolute gentleman, but you're just thinking, how the fuck can I get out of here as quick as possible? Like, how did you deal with that, Colin? Like, how did you, like, did you just sit through the whole date like thinking I want to go, or did you think of a reason?
The first time that ever happened to me was about 9 years ago,
Yeah.
And it was devastating, because you know when you're chatting to someone and you're connecting, like You know, you have an actual connection.
You mean online?
But the physical connection has to be there too, you know, like literally.
And you have a mental image of them as well in your head.
Oh yeah, you portray this kind of image in your head, you know, this kind of through rose-tinted glasses. And I remember, you know, walking up to the meter, and she says, "Oh, I'll pull in here, pull in near the shop." She said to me, so I walked down. And she got out, she got out of the car to meet me, and she didn't look anything like her pictures. It was quite. I'm trying not to say something bad here, you know what I mean? But I'm just describing. I can only describe what happened. It's a descriptive of my experience.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. You're doing great. I think you're doing great.
Fuck that. I'm looking at the two fucking laughing at me, you know what I mean? It's a whole opening up a can of worms here, you know? But it was just, that was my experience with it. I guarantee you, no matter who's listening to this, whether it's a man, woman, they would all be able to relate to that experience. I know lots of girls. I know loads of girls that have turned up to meet guys off Tinder, man, and absolutely disgusted when they turn up to meet them. You know what I mean? So yeah,
with all these filters and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like people I know I don't recognize online when I see their pictures coming up.
Yeah, when I'm on my Facebook feed, when men and women, and I'm scrolling down through it, I don't recognize them half the time. Only if I check the name. It's it's crazy. But that's a big issue with I suppose internet dating and going to meet people. But you just have to be honest. Like, say, look, if we turn up and we don't like each other, I haven't done it in a while, like, you know what I mean? But it was just like, look, turn up, we don't like each other. We just stay.
How did you find dating girls, like, say, that were drinking? You know, like, you know, or
I used to put up with it first, like, but I just always very honest about it in recent years, like. I haven't been on loads. At first though, did you struggle at first, or what way did it, like? Yeah, because you want it to be, you know, it takes a long time to actually have the balls just to stand up and go, look, I don't want nothing to do with a girl that I have to go out partying with or pretend, you know, like, or get in to fucking try fit into that situation that I clearly don't belong in. Now, don't get me wrong, I go out still. I like it. I like going, but I have a cut-off point where I go, look, I'm just not enjoying this anymore. You know, when people start to get messy and drunk, you can all relate to that, I'm sure. It's just really
I think there's two different things. Like, there's someone that has a couple of drinks and there's someone who's going out to get smashed. You know what I mean? It's
I have no issue with that. That's cool.
Yeah,
man.
No, just to distinguish it, like, you know what I mean? Of course, having a few drinks, you can still relate to the person. You can chat, you can do all those type of thing. But if you're like, you know, picking them up out of a pool of sick, you know what I mean? It's not really.
No, but that's good. Like, I really enjoy going out with people when they're having a few drinks or whatever. You know what I mean? But there's a line, man, and the line when you get to your 30s, like, and stuff like that, is just it's not good if you're having to pick someone up of a pool of sick, or not even that. If if the personality changes, you know what I mean? A big one. This is what I don't like. You know, I just don't like that point where someone changes, where they're not the person that they were. You know, it's unnecessary. Just in every way, you know, in every way. It's an exaggerated version of themselves, I suppose, you know, and it's uncomfortable to be around. And I've just been doing this so long, living this way so long, that I just like realness. I like real feelings, real people, and, you know, it's just, I don't, I'm not trying to sound like some cool guy, you know what I mean? Just want everyone to be real, man, you know? It's just like literally, but, you know, I don't know how else to articulate it. It's just, I like that, being in the moment kind of thing. Yeah. That's me.
Cool.
So back to that, I was just interested, because you were telling a story there, and I was interested, because one of the things is, for me, it's like, I learned, so, you know, I went through a stage where I was kind of dating a lot, you know what I mean? Going on dates, you know, and meeting different women, and just, you know, interested to, you know, just try out dating, the whole dating scene. And one of the things I learned was at the start, I started, saying, right, we'll meet for dinner and we'll go here, and I was like, and then if you didn't, and I'm not on about physical attraction, but if you just couldn't get on with the person and the conversation was just, not through no fault of each of the other person, we just people that didn't get on, like, do you know what I mean? And you're sitting there forcing a conversation, through the dinner, and you're like thinking, geez, how am I going to get through this? You know what I mean? This is, what do I talk about? And those kind of one word, you just get nowhere with the conversation. Then I learned, like, here, look, we'll meet for coffee first. You know what I mean? So
the coffee is great. Like, you know what I mean? You can't go wrong with that. It's just something I adopted a long time ago. If I was going on a date, so just let's have a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Because you get to know someone fairly quickly.
Back then,
not completely.
I mean. And definitely espresso, because you can finish that quick. But no, on seriously, that was the thing I learned as well back when I was dating, was just to kind of not commit to a long period of time, because it might not work out, like, do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's an interesting thing, the whole dating thing, and then like you guys, I'm in a long-term relationship now, and it's going very well, and the same thing is, there's always fears around that sort of stuff as well, and commitment and getting hurt again, and so I don't really have a lot to say about that. But the dating thing is a mad world, like, for anyone starting out in it now. Like, it's a lot of learning in it, and as Mick was saying, a lot, getting to know yourself and feel comfortable with yourself, and knowing that, that you might meet some rejection, but it doesn't change who you are. You know what I mean? You're just not for that person. You know what I mean? And that's the crack.
There's the other side of it too. It's like, we can talk till the cows come home, as we say in Ireland, about romantic relationships and first dates and coffees and all this, but then you also have, like, friendships as well, which are quite a challenge when you give up, because a lot of the time, depending on people's reasoning for giving it up, but people can have unresolved issues emotionally and stuff, so they can be amazing. I've had some amazing friendships over the years, like, but I've had some very toxic ones as well, very, very toxic. Like, and you'd never kind of think of that. You'd never think of it, as a man, and you wouldn't, never really understood that, It's only in recent years where, I remember hanging out with a guy, and he'd always say anything. I was very open and always trying to move forward with my life, always very energetic and open-minded to new ideas, and very positive, and didn't really see much negative stuff. And if I did, I'd just figure out a way around it, rather than feeling sorry for myself or moping, But I always remember this one guy, when I'd say an idea that I had or something, go, no, that's not good, that's not going to work. I remember, just thinking, why? Like, it zapped the energy. We've often spoke about this, about people draining energy, and I
energy vampires.
Vampires. And I kind of have that thing now, like we spoke about on a number of occasions. If someone doesn't add something to my life or bring something positive, and I don't bring something positive to them, vice versa, it works both ways, there's no real point. Like, if there's negative energy there, or you just feel drained every time you come away, I don't think there's much point in actually continuing that friendship, because we don't get much time in this world. I know that's another kind of this philosophical kind of thing, but it's true. Like, it can be tough enough in today's life, in so many different ways. You don't need anything external kind of making it more challenging for you, I suppose. That's my opinion on it, anyway.
Yeah, no, it's like I agree, and for me, it really, a person can be, like, going through a really hard time, you know what I mean, and for an extended period of time. Like, I have friends that are like that, you know what I mean, they're genuine, you know what I mean, genuinely have struggled, and no problem. Like, I love spending time with them. They don't zap my energy, they don't drain my energy. There's just a certain type of person that, I can't explain it. It's just, even being in their presence, I just lose energy, like, and it's like, it's just a negativity, and it's like it could be a selfishness, it could be a self-centeredness, it could be whatever, you know what I mean? It's just something that I don't like being around. But like, you know, when I transition, when I like, you know, stopped drinking or that, you know, a lot of my friendships would have stopped. We just didn't have anything to relate to, you know, and because I wasn't really like, you know, comfortable with myself, who I was, any of those type of things, I would have struggled, you know what I mean? Struggled to maintain them. And it's funny now, all these years later, you know what I mean, with like, you know what I mean, with a lot of us have had kids, and you know what I mean, you know, there's been that distance. I've gone away, made life for myself, they've done the same, and now we start to rekindle these friendships, you know what I mean, friendships from school, friendships that, you know, from my late teens, people that would have been really close to, and next minute we're bringing our kids, we're all going like bowling, we're going like go-kart racing, you know, hanging out with my kids the same age and stuff like that, and it's just really cool to see how it can come back around, you know, like in a way that at a certain time, but when I had those connections, it was real, you know what I mean, they were real people to me, you know what I mean? It was just the way life circumstances changed, you know, it just wasn't the time, you know what I mean? But just it's really nice that it's been able to come back around, and yeah, I'm like, for me, those toxic relationships like you're talking about, Colin, I've just learned that, like, you know, I mean, they're out, you know, I have, you know what I mean, I've lots of wonderful people that I can give me time to, you know, and I definitely don't waste my time with that stuff anymore.
It's a chemistry issue, isn't it? I think as well, you know. It's just sometimes it can be a chemistry issue. I think that you just don't click. But like you said, I have no problem with people going through bad times. Fuck, I go through bad times, you know what I mean? And I'm sure I'm not the best fun to be around and stuff, but it's just sometimes I just don't click. And like, it comes back to that whole philosophy, is that I don't have to like everyone and everyone doesn't have to like me, and that's just cool, you know. Once I accepted that in life, that was just an easy kind of understanding of things.
I think we're coming close to the end. I actually want to say, you know what I mean, my partner, like, we're together 8 years. We met a kind of a drug and alcohol free thing through a friend, you know. As you go along in this, you know, people that don't drink and use, you know, you gravitate more towards a few of them, you know what I mean, and make those connections. And we had a mutual friend. But there's things like, you know, the Funky Shomra that goes on in Ireland, you know, it's a drug and alcohol free event, and you know, it's places like that you can go to.
Plug.
And there's, what's that? Yeah.
Nice
No affiliation. But one thing I will say before we end, I don't know if you can relate to this, right? I know this is terrible, right? But I've gone to these things, like, you know what I mean, where drug and alcohol free, and there's people that just go there and they decide not to drink. They're not making it for any other decision other than they'd like to go out and party with no drugs or alcohol in them. And I don't know, do you ever get this, that, like, you know what I mean, if someone's having too much of a good time when they don't have anything in them, it's just kind of like, I'd kind of go, you're having too good a time. Like,
why?
I don't know, man. No, I mean, like, I mean, really, really having, like, you know what I mean? It's like, like
that's
I
me,
wish
man.
everyone,
What are you on about?
just
I thought you liked me.
Just to clear up something, the two lads just start dancing there. Because Danny was amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man. But yeah, but that's me, Mick. I'd be just doing the whole, you know. But like, yeah, I know what you're saying. It's almost like, you know, what's made you so super happy? Do you know? It's kind of it's an interesting one. I mean, yeah, those Funky Shomras, they're good crack, like, and yeah. I've enjoyed the chat, and relationships is obviously and I like the way you kind of went into the whole toxic thing as well. And there's also, just quickly, is the pluses of positive relationships. You know what I mean? I've had, you know, Mick touched on it there, so many great things, you know, in my life, from people coming into my life and introducing new ideas, new things. You know what I mean? Because I've opened up and let them into my life. You know. And they're the rewards of having good relationships, you know, really good relationships. Like you guys.
Amazing.
You guys just rock.
I just want to jump in there and say, we've only barely scratched the surface of this kind of stuff, really, like, you know, and it's all been from our own perspectives. But if anyone wants to jump on Instagram and hit us up and chat to us, and, you know, just for the chat, our Instagram is That's Good Crack Podcast. Hit us up.
Sweet.
Mick. That phone is causing interference, yeah.
It's calling aliens in.
It's calling
All right,
aliens,
folks.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Right, hold on. What's give out the other stuff? Oh, you have. Yeah, okay. No, I was gonna say name out or other things, or Twitter or Facebook.
Where's that's _crack?
Nice.
_crack. Just just follow us on the old Twitter, you know. Twitter.
Yeah, hit us up there on the old Facebook. It's That's Good Crack. Just search that. There is literally nothing else like it on Facebook. So.
And if someone could message me how to use Twitter, it'd be great too. Thanks.
Annie, you're doing a great job. All right, lads. And if anyone listening to us and would like to maybe think that you would suit our podcast or anything, because we're going to start bringing guests onto it, just drop us a message. Hit us up, 3drylads@gmail.com. Either, I really don't like that email, but that was decided ages ago.
Best email ever.
3drylads, so that's the number 3. Drylads@gmail.com. If you think you'd like to come on the podcast and have something to offer, we'd love to hear from you.
And could any of my ex-girlfriends please not email that address? Thanks very much. And I'm
Anyway,
sorry.
that's it. Right, good. It's been good, lads.
Peace.
Gramila Mohigot. Slán go full.
Slán, lad.
Slán that by you.
Don't forget to subscribe to That's Good Crack on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever you're listening to it right now.